Hello and welcome to Unwind Sessions, where right after my shift I give the highlights of my workday and answer any questions that might have been asked on the previous session. My name is Juan. I am an English Spanish medical video remote interpreter with over 4 years of experience. Today is April, Monday 26, 2021. I took a total of 28 sessions. They go from phone sessions to video sessions, and today was a pretty uneventful day. No new vocabulary, no difficult situations. Everything was pretty much straightforward, except for my very first session that I took. So we actually have an HD cam hooked up to our laptop that we use for interpreting. And as soon as the session came in, my camera stopped working. So I tried refreshing to see if it would work again, and it didn't. So what I actually did was just use my camera, my regular laptop camera, to actually take the session. And it was a little weird because it has a lower resolution, but I mean, for interpreting, they only need to hear you, right? So as soon as I was done with that session, I restarted my computer and then my camera started working again. So that was pretty much the highlight of today, because as I stated, the whole day today was pretty easy, nothing really eventful. And that's weird because there's always something that happens. Um, well, there was this one guy that the the nurse was having trouble getting a straight answer out of him, but I mean nothing relevant that I can say here that would actually help you guys. So I was going to tell you a story today again, but then I saw that there was a comment on one of our other videos about I didn't even write it down, but it was about one of our viewers saying that note taking was actually one of his biggest obstacles, and I would like to talk about that. I would like to talk about note taking today. And the first thing that I would like to mention is that I believe that the first time every interpreter has ever come across note taking, it seems like a world. It seems so hard because, I mean, this is something that you've never done before, and of course they are hard, but this is one of those things that you will never get better at it if you don't practice it. But one thing that you have to make sure is that, like I've stated before in another video, that you never practice it in isolation. So I'm going to talk about things that you can do and how you should actually be viewing your note taking so that you don't focus so much on your note taking but actually focus on interpreting as a whole, like I've already said before in one of our videos. So question number one: how do you get better at something that you've never done before? And of course, the answer to this is practice. You have to practice because if it's something you've never had before and it's a skill that you actually have to develop, then you will actually have to practice to get better at it. And note taking is not the exception. I really think that um, when we are baby terps or beginning interpreters, the first thing that note taking seems so hard is because everything else that goes along with interpreting is actually done automatically in our minds. Like we don't really have to think about it that much. For example, when we're listening to a speaker, it automatically comes into us, right? And we're analyzing it in our mind and we're listening to this person. And when it's time to interpret, well, we can actually it takes a little bit of work, but we can actually like it, and it just like comes out naturally, right? Like you don't really have to force the interpretation. And of course, sometimes you do, but for the most part, this is something that once you have practiced it in your interpreting course, it will be a little easier and it will just flow, right? But note taking is a little different. I believe this is what really makes it seem harder. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but it makes it seem harder than it really is. Than it really is. And it really is. And because what makes it hard is that you actually have to do something, right? You're actually having to write down the notes. And if you're not familiar with writing down notes at all, like I know I wasn't, before actually taking notes, I don't even remember when was the last time I ever took a pen or a pencil to actually write something down. It had probably been years since I did that. So um, that is one of the things that is difficult because you have to get used to writing again if you didn't do it before. And I mean, we're all used to cell phones and everything. Unless you're actually going to school, I believe, or you actually have a job where you actually have to write down with pen a lot. I believe that many of us are not skilled in that anymore or have lost almost that skill. So you're gonna have to gain it back. And after that, you actually have to have good writing or actually uh, have good like um, like you actually have to know you actually have to tell what you're writing, like if you write a word for a note or just like four letters for a very long word, you actually have to look at that word and it actually has to make sense to you. So that is something else that is a little hard to actually practice if you have lost practice with writing with a pen or a piece of paper. So that is actually one of the things that you're actually going to have to master along with everything else, with the note taking, with the listening. So that is a really big skill that you actually have to master again. If you don't have it mastered, that everything you're writing down, it's the correct size for you to actually be able to write it correctly and actually be able to recognize it. And another thing is that Mm, you're going to have to learn how to write in smaller spaces. Some people draw like lines on their paper, three lines, and they cut the paper in thirds. And well, they don't cut it; they just draw a line through it. And their their notes are vertical, so they might write like four little words and they will actually this is actually faster and it helps them to actually be able to keep their notes reduced. I don't do this because I work on a Woogie on a LCD screen. Well, not an LCD screen, an LCD board. So I don't know. For some reason, I believe uh, when I was using the notebook, I did use that when I was using notebook and a pen. But then when I started using a whiteboard, my the the points of the markers that I actually got were a little thick, or they would get thick as they wore out. So like I was using a little whiteboard, like probably like about this big. So I mean, actually cutting it in thirds, and then with the really thick point on the marker, that would actually make it hard because when I would split it in thirds, and I could only get like a word in a third, so I stopped doing that. And then what I started doing is just writing it out. And sometimes I would actually do it automatically, but one thing is that whenever you have to write something fast, uh, doing a list vertically is actually going to be much faster than actually writing it out like that, because you're it's more of a movement, you know, it's a longer movement when you're writing like this than if you're just writing like this, right? So one of the things that will really help you is to actually go ahead and, for any list that you have to write down really quick, it's better to go down. And if it helps you to actually split your paper in thirds, that would actually give you a visual cue of what you need to write down, and it will actually make you write down um, the the words or the notes much faster. So that's a tip. I believe that I had shared this tip in most of the interpreting courses, but if they don't, there you go. So uh, I am going to um, talk about a little bit about how you can practice to get better at note taking. So I've already asked, how do you get better at something that you've never done before? And the way that you actually do it is you practice. There will be no substitute for practice. For example, let's say that interpreting is basketball, right? And let's say note taking is dribbling past the other players, right? The competition. So you know that if you lack in dribbling, the only way that you're ever going to get better at basketball is actually practicing your dribbling, right? So, uh, what, um, but the point is not to get better at dribbling, right? Like, of course, you want to get better at dribbling, but what is the point? What is like the main thing? What makes you want to get better at dribbling? Well, it's the whole picture, right? You want to get better at basketball. So it wouldn't make sense to just practice your dribbling, because if you only practice dribbling, then you're forgetting to practice how to play basketball, right? Which is the point, getting better at basketball. So in this example, if you want to get better at note taking, then it doesn't make sense to just practice note taking, because at the end, what you really want to do is get better at interpreting, right? That's why you want to practice your notes. That's why you would want to get better at note taking. And that is like one of the things that is a little hard and to struggle with, because sometimes we're used to like just practicing just a certain thing, but in interpreting that will not work. And it will work, like it'll work a little bit, but when you actually have to um, integrate it into the actual interpreting, then it will slow you down. And I believe, um, take this with a grain of salt because I'm not an authority on the subject, but I believe that it shouldn't be practiced in isolation. And let me tell you why. I will get into that in a little bit. But let's go back to the basketball analogy. So, okay, let's say you're practicing dribbling, and all of a sudden you manage to do a really great dribble and you get past your opponent. Now, if you're practicing in the court, what, like, you're gonna be excited. You're gonna be so excited because you passed this person. And of course, what's the next thing that you're gonna do? If you're in a court, once you get past the person, I bet you, like 90% of the time, most of us will take that shot, right? Because what's the next thing you're gonna do? You're gonna be so excited. You just got past the person. You're in a court, so you're gonna throw that shot, right? And if you make it or if you don't make it, you're still gonna feel good about yourself because you actually got past the person and you actually threw the shot. So, what are you doing there? You practice your dribbling, but you actually practice taking a shot. So you are practicing basketball, right? You didn't just stop at dribbling. You actually went and took the shot that actually make you practice basketball, right? So you will practice basketball because it's the natural thing to do, and it's more bang for your buck, right? Because you're actually practicing a shot. So it's natural for someone to do that, I would imagine. Um, so what people do is that with note taking, they practice their dribbling, but they don't take the shot. Like, I remember when I was practicing the note taking, I would focus on actual note taking. Like, I would focus on just uh, getting anything that I could get my hands on, and just writing notes for that, like YouTube videos. I would just look at a YouTube video that I've never seen before, and then I would just get on it, and then I would just practice the note taking. And then from the note taking that I took, I would go back, and then I would look at the segment that was stated, and then I would see if my notes matched everything that was said, and I could actually make out just from my notes the exact things with high precision that were actually mentioned. And that's good. That's good. But in the end, I think it's better if you actually look at the segments, you take down the notes, and right after you're done with your notes and right after you've heard that segment, go ahead and interpret it from your notes. That way, you're not only practicing note taking, but you're actually practicing everything that you need in your note taking and interpreting. And I believe that way it's like you're practicing the whole basketball, right? And it's more bang for your buck, and you're actually gonna get better at the main thing, not just the note taking. So I hope that that makes sense, and I hope that that helps some of you. Uh, so moving on. When I was in the interpreting course, I know that we had a lot of practice, and by a lot of practice, I mean we had an 8-hour course every day, and it was just practicing interpreting what the person would do, the instructor. He would be on a session, on a phone session. We were all over the phone, and what he would do is he would say a segment, and then he would have one of us, actually he would say the name, like for example, Juan, it's your turn to interpret this segment. And then he would read the segment, and then well, of course, I had to write down the notes, and then I had to interpret what the gentleman said. But the rest of the people that were actually listening in, they had to be muted, and they had to actually take the notes as well. And then while they were muted, they have to give their interpretation. And well, it was 8 hours every day, so that was a lot. That was a lot of practice, and we did get a lot of practice. But I mean, since I had never done note taking or interpreting in my life, it just felt like it was not enough. So if you feel that way, and like you probably do, that it's just the practice that they give you is not enough, then I would suggest you do the following. I remember when I got out of the class, and I still wanted to practice my note taking even more. What I would do is that I would just get on YouTube, and like I mentioned, I would just start taking notes, and then I would see if my notes actually matched what the speaker said, and that was it. That was my note taking practice. But now that I've actually been an interpreter for 4 years now, I want to give you the insight of what I think now that will actually improve your note taking much better than the method that I was using when I had no experience. So this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna pick out something that you want to interpret, something that you've never heard before. So if I had to do it all over again, if I had to practice my note taking, this is the way that I would actually do it. So once I've already picked out a video, pick out the length, I don't know, and if, if you've never done our practice videos, I would suggest you start with those and pick a practice video that you've never heard, one of ours, and actually go ahead and do like 5 segments and record yourself. This is very important. Record the whole thing, even the what you're listening to. Make sure you record it on your phone, computer, or anything. Go ahead and record what you're going to interpret, and uh, let's say it's not an interpreting video; it's just a random video on YouTube, and they give you your segment. Let's say, I don't know, just gauge yourself. And whenever you think you've heard enough, go ahead and play pause, and then go ahead and interpret what you said. And then go ahead and play the video again and do it again. Do it 5 times. And once you actually did it 5 times, stop the recording and go back to the beginning of the video and actually listen to what the video said while you're reading your notes, and make sure that excuse me, and make sure that everything that is in your notes is what the speaker said. And you're going to see right away from that if you wrote too many notes or you wrote too little notes. And from that, then you will actually have a gauge, like, do I need to write more notes? Do I need to write less notes? And that will actually give you an idea of what you need to focus on. If you need to write more notes, write less notes, write neater notes, whatever you need, just from listening. And then go ahead and well, you're gonna be listening to your recording, so automatically it's actually gonna go to what you interpret. And what you interpret, actually look at your notes and make sure that it's all there and that you didn't miss anything. And once again, this will also give you another gauge to see if you needed to write more things or less things, so that you could actually remember from the notes that you took everything that was said. And once you actually have that gauge, then you will have an idea of what you need to practice on. Do I need to make my letters smaller, bigger? Do I need to write faster? Do I need to write less notes? Whatever it is, it's going to be right there in your notes. And this exercise is going to give you an idea of what you actually need to improve upon, so that you actually can be mindful whenever you do the next step. So the next step is the following. Once you have already gauged and you've been through the 5 segments and you have an idea of what your notes are lacking, then the next thing that you should work on is just go ahead and do an hour of interpretation. Go ahead and put on a timer or put an alarm, and just go ahead and bust out interpreting whatever random video you could find on the internet. And um, what I would say is that um, you pause it whenever you feel like it, or whenever the speaker makes a pause, then that's the moment to pause. And then just do it like that for an hour. And you don't even need to record this. This is just so that you can get better at your notes. So, but the important thing is that right after you write down the notes and you listen to the speaker, you actually give your interpretation from the notes that your notes and your memory retention that you have gathered, right? And then once you go ahead and do several segments and your hour is up, go ahead and take a 15-minute break. Listen to some music, read a little bit of a book, go outside, get some fresh air, whatever you need to do. And then go back to the first thing that you actually interpreted, the one that you recorded yourself on, and go ahead and record yourself again. Now you're going to do this exercise again. You're going to record yourself interpreting those 5 segments once again. And once you're done, go back and take a look at your notes, the same thing, the same way that you did it the first time. And at the end, once you are already finished, go ahead and compare both notes that you actually took. And I guarantee you that once you actually look at the notes from the first time and the notes from the second time, your notes from the second time are going to be much, much better. And of course, I mean, you might remember a little bit of what was said, so the second time it'll be a little bit easier. But this is just to give you confidence that practice really does work, and you will actually be able to see it right there in front of you that, oh my God, my notes really did get much better. Um, the point is that even though a second time interpreting the same thing will be easier, you will see that your notes will improve. And that is the only way that you're ever going to get better is by practice. So there is no shortcut in getting better at note taking other than practice, but remember that you need to practice interpreting, not just note taking, because at the end that's a job that you're going to be doing, and that's a big picture. That's the reason why you want to get better at your note taking in the first place, right? And remember that as interpreters, you will be doing this for like 8 hours a day, or probably even more. I mean, they give overtime where I work, and people are working like 8, 10, 11 hours a day. And at one point, I was working so much, and that's practice. I mean, that if I took a look at my notes from back then and a look at my notes from now, well, now I write very little things, and then sometimes I just write a single word because the person is already done talking, and I can actually interpret from memory. And there will be a lot of small segments like that. But what you're actually practicing for is for like those really big, long stories that people just drop on you every once in a while. So just practice as much as you can. Remember that if you're going for a part-time job, just remember that you're gonna be there doing this for 4 hours. So I would say, if you're going for a part-time job, go ahead and practice at least 1 hour a day. If you're going for a full-time job, then go ahead and practice 2 hours a day. And you will see that the more you do it, the better you will get. And before you begin each practice session, I would suggest that you do a recorded session where you actually do the 5 segments, and then you look at your notes to make sure that everything that you wrote down is what the speaker has said, or actually, I should say, everything that you wrote down, you can actually make out from uh, I'm sorry, that everything you write down you can piece together to make sure that everything the person has said is included within your notes. Because of course we're not writing everything. We're trying to make it as short as possible, and less is better in this case. And I believe that if you do that, you will see every time that your notes are getting better, and it will give you something to practice on and be mindful for your practice sessions, for your hour or your 2 hours practice sessions, because you will already see what you have written down. And then after a while, you won't even need to do that because you will already know what you're lacking, and you will probably have the confidence to know that you don't really need to gauge your notes anymore, because whatever you're interpreting is already pretty good. And one gauge that will actually do this is recording yourself. So once you have actually uh, Once you feel pretty good about your note taking, I would say go ahead and record yourself. And you don't even have to look at your notes. Just go ahead and see what was stated and then just hear your interpretation. And that way you will get a gauge. Am I saying it? Am I interpreting everything correctly? Am I interpreting everything that was said? Am I using the right register? Am I using the correct words and everything? And that will actually gauge you in your interpreting, because I mean, in the end, that's what we're hoping for, right? That's what we're shooting for, to become better interpreters, not just better note takers. So that will be pretty much it for me today. I hope that this can help some of you. And if you have any more things that you would like to talk about, things that you're struggling on, or anything, I am more than glad to help you and just give you some tips right here through these videos. I'm doing these videos for you because I actually want to give back to the interpreter community. That's why we made this channel in the first place, so people could actually have practice videos that are actually accessible for everyone, right? So that's us. I mean, we're just trying to help you guys out. So the questions that you ask and okay, still recording. It says something, but okay. So I'm just gonna make this pretty fast because I'm already half an hour. Dang. Okay. So the questions that you ask are going to be what we're gonna be answering here. And if you're stuck in something, go ahead and uh, drop us a question. And if I don't know the question, I will actually research it and ask around to make sure that I get you the correct answer. So that will be pretty much it for me today. Please leave your questions on the comments and I will answer some of them on the next session. I will be here every Monday through Friday after work. If I ever happen to not work, I will let you know so you don't expect a session the next day. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video and have not done so for more content. And don't forget to share. Happy interpreting. Goodbye.